Hello and welcome to this continuing first look exploring session looking at the Devil's Charter by Barnabe Barnes. It's a lovely name. It's such a shame that this is the complete works of Barnabe Barnes in terms of dramatic literature. Yes, this is all we're going to get to really judge his work. I think there is some poetry or other bits and pieces knocking about, but in terms of dramatic stuff, this is it. We fitfully enjoyed this. That when it was high, and when it was low, it was low, and when it was somewhere in between, it was neither high nor low. I don't know where that was going. We've had some fun times, and we're going to see whether we find more of a route through what we might do with the text like this, which is they're doing lots of different things all simultaneously. To continue the journey through the Devil's Charter, reading today, Caesar, Devil and Servant is...
Steve Longstaffe, based in the northwest of England.
Reading Alexander, Baglioni and Second Boy Potentially is...
Sarah Blake, actor, writer and director, based in Germany.
Reading Astor, Barbarossa, Page, Caraffa, Physician and Potentially First Boy is...
Alan in Suffolk, trying to keep track of what I'm doing.
Reading Phillipo, Frescobaldi, Lucretia, Devil Number 2, Bentivoli and Potentially Catherine is...
Aliki, Chapple, in the north of England.
And reading Bernardo, Candy, Francis and Moticilla is...
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Amisu and I hail from sunny Essex.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I will be reading stage directions, which normally sounds like this tiny little thing, but this play throws some epic stage directions at you, so I will endeavour not to say too many of them. I don't think there are too many clash issues with some of the text, but there is a risk of you talking to yourselves in some scenes. We shall see how that goes. I will move things around if necessary. Anyway, Act 3, Scene 1. Let's dive straight into it. We had pitched battles last time between various characters. Some of them then died, and it doesn't matter what was going on. But we have been assured by our resident historian, Francis, that the wily Pope dissembles at all hands. The sequel only concerns him and Caesar. So Alexander and Caesar, or Cesare Borgia, as we might more commonly know him as. Act 3, Scene 1. Enter Astor, Manfredi and Phillipo.
Brother Phillipo, what availeth it, when our state lost the Fontines compounded, that I should hold both life and liberty, with all revenues of my proper state, when as my life within the court of Rome is much more loathsome to my soul than death, liberty more grief than servitude.
I rather choose within the river Tiber to drown myself, or from Tarpeian hill my vexed body to precipitate, than to submit my body to the shame of such viled, brutish, and unkindly lust.
He that with fire and brimstone did consume Sodom and other cities round about, deliver us from this soul-slaying sin to which our bodies are made prostitute.
Enter Bernardo.
Dear salutations from my lord the Pope. I recommend unto your excellence, with semblable remembrance of his love, to you, my lord Phillipo.
Good Bernardo, my duty bound unto his holiness, return in payment from his captive servant.
Ingenious prince, I bring a friendly message of tender kindness, which I must impart.
They draw themselves aside.
This ruby from our holy father's finger, in private token of his faithful love, he bid me secretly deliver you, and therewithal desireth of your love, to have with him some private conference.
I was now going to Our Lady's Mass in St. John Lateran's, where my ghostly father attendeth me for my confession. But thank his holiness on my behalf in all due reverence and humility.
Pause.
Tell him, so soon as I return, to come according to my bounden duty.
Exit Bernardo.
My case is desperate. What shall I do? Phillipo, was there ever any man hunted with such unsatisfied rage?
What? Hath he sent again to visit you?
To visit me? Nay, to dishonour me. Behold this ruby sent from his own finger, which as a bawd inviteth me to shame.
And they exit. Do they exit? No, they remain on stage as scene continues. Yes, sorry, reading stage directions correctly. That makes more sense, doesn't it? Yes, it does. Enter, as we go into Act 3, Scene 2, Alexander out of a casement.
Astor! What? Astor! My delight, my joy, my star, my triumph, my sweet fantasy, my more than son, my love, my concubine. Let me behold those bright stars, my joy's treasure, those glorious, well-attempered, tender cheeks, that spacious forehead like a lane of lilies, that seemly knows Jove's chariot triumphant, breathing Pancarian odours to my senses, that gracious mouth betwixt whose crimson pillow Venus and Cupid sleeping kissed together, that chin, the ball vowed to the queen of beauty, now budding ready to bring forth love blossoms. Astor Manfredi, turn thee to my love. Come hither, Astor, we must talk above.
Afraid, a slave to sin, what shall I say? Most holy father.
Oh, do not me forget, I am thy brother and thy dearest friend, and though in age I love, know that desire in riper years is pure and permanent, grounded on judgment, flowing from pure love, whereas the love lightning from young desire, fickle and feeble, will not long hold fire. It is so violent it will not last. They're blessed whose lovers love when youth is past.
To call you friend were too familiar. To call you brother sorts not with our years. To call you father doth import some fear, due to that age your holiness doth bear.
Tell me not of mine age and holiness. Thy sight sufficeth me to make me young. Neither upbraid me with my sanctimony. Love is the purest essence from above, and to thy soul I would affix my love. Come hither then, and rest with me tonight. Give me fruition of those amorous pits, where blinded Cupid close in ambush sits, who, with his arrow, when thou laughed at Venus, shot through thy smiling cheeks and did enchain us. Thy chamber with ambrosial odours breatheth. New loves and true loves unto them that entreateth, and furious Mars made mild his falchion sheatheth at thy delicious aspect. See thy chamber, the walls are made of roses, roof of lilies. Be not ashamed to mount and venture it. Here Cupid's altar and fair Venus' hill is. Thy bed is made with spice and calamus, with cinnamon and spikenard, Arabic, with oppo balsam and rich gums of Egypt. Music angelical of strings and voices, with sundry birds in sugared symphony, where whistling wood nymphs and the pleasant choices of antique action mixed with harmony. Attend thy joyous entrance to this chamber.
Is it possible that the devil can be so sweet a dissembler?
Yes, and play the pleasant part of a conceited amoret. He can take the shape of a bright angel.
Now, my sweet friends, the joys of love doth mutter. Thy mind too bashful is. Speak tongue, love's utter. Thy coral gums cut love's pure quintessence, and thou thy fair boy, love's purest essence.
Oh, blessed heavens, let Satan tempt no longer. His force is powerful, yet my strength much stronger. He that with guileful baits gilded untruth, so seeks to blast the blossom of my youth.
Delicious fruits, divine confections of herbs, roots, flowers of sundry fashions, preservatives drawn from the rich elixir of finest gold, pure pearl, and precious stones, provided for thy divine appetite. Wines of more price, made by the industrious art in sacred distillations, than that nectar which Hebe bare when Jove did most affect her.
Satan, false god of lies and flattery, how palpable is this gross villain?
What, wilt thou come, Manfredi, to my chamber, and bless me with thy precious breath of amber?
After Our Lady's Mass, I will return. Dear God, what furies in his soul do burn! After the celebration of the Mass, I come, my lord.
Exeunt Astor and Phillipo.
Come then, and let that pass.
Alexander tinketh a bell.
Holla! Bernardo! All business for this night I will adjourn. Give good attendance, that at his return Astor may come to me for my sick heart. Till Astor with his beauty full embrace do bless my body, wounded with his dart, can find no rest. Love hath it in hot chase.
And exit. Okay, I think it's fair to say we've got quite a lot to unpack from this scene. I mean, it has to be said partially due to the nature of the randomness of the casting, we're not necessarily getting the full horror of this scene of an older religious figure procuring a younger boy. In this, and Astor is a relatively young lad, and also this tinketh of a bell. We had tinkething of a bell last time, calling for Bernardo, and now Bernardo's starting to feel more like a procurer is one of his primary jobs. There's actually something quite disturbing about what this is doing. There's also problematic elements to what it's saying as well. As well as, there is also, it has to be said, a certain level of enjoyment can be had out of the ridiculousness of what Alexander is doing there. But yeah, it's doing all sorts of different things at the same time, all of which I'm not quite sure precisely what to make of, because I sort of feel bad about enjoying a lot of that, because it's not actually a very pleasant scenario. Aliki.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. On the one hand, we have the coercive element. On the other hand, I presume that for the intended audience, the homosexuality of the scene would be at least as forbidden as the coercion, if not more so. And just it's really hard to see what Alexander is doing there is creepy when he's being so lushly purple in the descriptions.
Yeah, it's and I think you're absolutely right. The what this is saying is, look how awful Alexander is because he wants to sleep with men, and that obviously is a very different. That's a bit of a problem as part of the situation, and there are sort of other problems with the way that lands as well. Sarah,
I think you get round that problem though by what you just said. It's like, okay, these days, staging this now for a modern audience, they're not going to be horrified by the homosexuality, but they can be horrified by the fact that you've got not just an older guy, but a guy who's immensely powerful, preying on this younger guy. And I'm just going back to the previous scene because we sort of ran those in together. I mean, did I read that right? Like, had they just lost their state? So have they just effectively been defeated in battle, or have they just lost their home or something? So like there's this additional sense of powerlessness from the fact that there's this Pope here who has everything and has all the power, and this guy who was not only a lot younger, but more importantly, completely powerless. And I think if you played that up, then it actually, you could probably, that would offset a lot of the kind of the lushness, as it were. And yeah, there would still be bits in it that would be funny, because I don't think you could help that actually. But it would create the same effect of like horror and kind of, looking through your eyes, and the audience would be laughing, but it would be laughter of, discomfort more than anything else.
Yes, because the opening scene is all basically about setting up and just going, look, anyone here is a target for this man's lusts, and we're sort of waiting for the card to fall, and then Bernardo turns up and says, "Ha, here you are. This is the thing you've been waiting for," and he's going, "Oh no, he's chosen me," and it's the fact that Phillipo is sort of hanging around in the background, assiding to the audience. I think that's how it's supposed to be played. To comment on it as it's going on. I mean, one of the real difficulties with that is, that this is such a triggering scenario. This is something that, especially the kind of thing we're getting documentaries on this kind of thing almost, every week, as to how prevalent this was and still is, and so the slightly light tone of it all is quite jarring. But that's not inherently there's all sorts of questions about that. Stephen?
Yeah, I was struck by the kind of Neoplatonism of it in two ways. So Neoplatonism is the kind of reinvention of Plato by the Renaissance, basically, and it happens in northern Italy. So I'm interested. Alexander is coming out with lines which are sort of straight out of Neoplatonist playbook, in the sense that he's talking about, forget bodies, we're all just essences. And he's trying to get sort of round some of the issues that we've been talking about by doing that sort of, we're all sonnets, basically, we're all pure being. And the fact that the bodies are this way or that way doesn't really matter. And I think that's really interesting, the way that language is deployed, because the dramatic context is one thing, but actually the ideas are another thing. And I feel it's really interesting that this sort of very respectable philosophical approach, which is about the possibilities of humans to transcend, it's a kind of attempt to mash Christianity and Greek philosophy in a sense, that we are more than our bodies. But you can see how it's being deployed here. And of course, you replace the word essence with the word identity, and we're bang slap in the middle of contemporary stuff. Bodies don't matter. So I'd be really interested to see this in front of a contemporary audience, because we've got a dramatic context, which is kind of predatory, perhaps, etc., but the arguments are still circulating today, and not necessarily in a predatory context. So I think it could be a remarkably contemporary kind of scene in terms of the ideas, and it's kind of Renaissance stuff, purity of worship, blah blah blah. But actually, what that means is, don't worry about the bits. We've got this essential ethereal connection, which is you and me. So I find that really, really interesting, dramatically, and also from the kind of boring history of ideas point of view.
Okay, right. We need to move on, I'm afraid. So hold on to some of those thoughts. Still got quite a lot of text we have to get through. This is a long play. Act 3, Scene 3. Enter Caesar Borgia, the Cardinal, and Frescobaldi, a ruffian.
Wilt thou perform it faithfully?
What I will live to eat, to drink, to sleep.
Wilt thou perform it valiantly?
Will I eat to drink? Will I drink to sleep? Will I sleep to live?
Wilt thou be secret and conceal my plot?
My name is Frescobaldi. As for my pedigree, my mother was of consanguinity with the Princess of Perugia, my father of the noble family of the Audi Florentine. Both I, myself, brought up a page under Rainer, King of Sicily, have served against the Turks and Saracens, where at Vienna, with my single pike, armed in a melee brigantine of Naples, and with an old fox which I kept in store, a monument of Mars when I depart, I did unhorse 3 Turkish janissaries, and, in the wars of Ferdinand the King, this hip was shot through with a crocodile, but that it were too tedious, I could show you. Under the King of Romans I was cut just from this shoulder to the very pap, and yet, by fortunes of the war, am here, I thank God, and my surgeon all fix, trillalil. Fought at Malta, when the town was girt with sergeants' heads and bull beggars of Turkey, and by my plot, mining below the rampier, we gave the hobgoblins leave to scale our walls, and being mounted all upon that place, I, with my linstock, gave fire to the train, and sent them capering up to Capricornus, which, when the wise astronomers of Greece prodigiously discovered from afar, they thought those turkeys fiery meteors, which, with their pikes, were pushing in the clouds. Learned bookmen writ strange almanacs of signs and apparitions in the airs, and by these honours, if I prove a blab, then call me villain, varlet, coward, scab.
Then tell me, Frescobaldi, where I may send to thee when time shall serve.
Hey, for the most part, my mansion is in Civitavecchia nella strada di San Lorenzo, near the conduit, at a good old lady's house, La Donna Semprogna, at sign of the Glister Pipe, where, if you chance to fail of me, within 3 hours more, at sign of the Frying Pan, you may command me at all hours in the forenoon.
Gramercy, Frescobaldo, I will take the note of these houses in my tables, but be sure and ready when opportunity calls upon you.
May it please your most reverend grace, without offence to your lordship, to deliver me the party's name, upon whom I should perform this tragedy, for I may per case catch him in a glider myself before you're aware, and moily muffle up his maestership with the garrotta, or stiletto, perchance the poniard or pistol, such as I warrant you shall serve his turn.
Be it sufficient thou shalt know hereafter, my business and affairs are very great. One word more, and adieu.
He roundeth with Frescobaldi.
Secret as midnight, sure as the sun, quick as the waters.
Why, so said brave Frescobaldi, like a man of some resolution. Farewell. Remember the watchword. Do not fail.
My business and affairs are very great, my gracious lord. One word more with your grace, my good lord, and so I kiss your foot.
He whispereth with Caesar.
It was not ingratitude, nor forgetfulness in me, Frescobaldi. Here, take this, and remember me.
He delivereth him a purse.
I encounter your munificence with my love, and your love with my service, my love and service with your money. Pardone mio molto onorato, more for your love than your money, and yet your grace well knows clothes must be wrought, weapons must be bought, and taverns must be sought, and all brave exploits must be done, as they should be done, bravely.
Now that I keep my secret to myself, I will not use this slave for any gold, yet when I trust him, he shall not deceive me.
Exit Caesar.
Now, skelder, you scoundrels! Skelder, you maggot-mongers, you pompions! You woodworms! You maggot-pipicos! I am for you now, Frescobaldi! Call thy wits together. Let me see now what o'clock it is. Very near 8, and almost breakfast time. At 11 this very night must I stand perdue for this bloody service. I know my place and hour. I must confess, and perchance be hanged. I have in the bordellos and in other such houses of natural recreation and agility received 3 or 4 score broken pates in my time, and some bastinados for crossing courting spicy-spirited inamoratas in their humours. Besides, I was the first that from the Swiss quarter, in the reign of King Ferdinand, brought up in his army the fashions of bowsing, and to use Greek and Spanish wines by the flagon, with that old stinkard Henrico Baglioni, sometimes Alfero as to Capitano Piccolomini and myself. I remember likewise at Terracina I broke a glass containing some quart of Robolia upon the face of Capitaneo Francesco Boccansacchia, a very sufficient soldier in that service, and to my knowledge a tall trencherman, albeit from the teeth downward, as base a muddled coward as ever was coined out of the sooty side of a copper kettle. So he was. Well, I will second my lord in any slaughter for his wages, and if any man give me better airs, when I have served the cardinal's turn, I will present my pistol upon his sacred person afterwards, for charity's sake. Well, now, to the drinking school, then to the fence school, and lastly, to the vaulting school, to my lady Sempronia.
And exit. Okay, fun. This play keeps throwing up these fun scenes that are doing all sorts of stuff. That I mean, I get that Caesar is hiring Frescobaldi to kill someone, but at any point during this scene, is it stated who? I mean, I mean, I can guess who the target is, but it's not. Nobody ever says it. It's just because, you know, do not fail, succeed, do the thing. And then he goes off, he does his comedy stand-up routine, and then he exits. And I'm sort of, who are you kidding?
Well, we'll find out, I suppose. And just because you have a garrulous goon doesn't mean that he has to tell you what he's up to.
Well, yeah, he's commissioning a murder. It'd be nice to know who your target is. You're supposed to give him a photo and an address. You know, this seems. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, Sarah.
Yes, but the scene starts with him Caesar saying, "Wilt thou perform it faithfully?" So it's like that conversation's already been had.
Yes, but not for us.
No, not for us, but I'm sure that's deliberate to kind of build up our suspense. And the fact that there's this incredibly verbose dude going on and on and on. And it's like, okay, tell us who it is, tell it who it is. And the scene ends and we still don't know. I think that's kind of masterful, actually. It's sort of funny and raising the suspense.
I do love the way that he basically does, and here is my CV. Goes, I've done all these things. Alan?
I'm just wondering whether Frescobaldi was written for the guy who normally took clown roles with the sheer volume of words and the sheer braggadocio of it.
Yes, and it's interesting. You do have this massive speech at the end, and it's not there for a structural reason. It's there because they want to do it. So that's interesting. Aliki.
Well, I mean, first of all, maybe everybody wants to have a little bit of fun after the previous scene. Also, secondly, I don't. It's not like anybody in this play is terse, right?
That is true. There is a certain verbosity to this script. There's an awful lot of words, some of which might have to go. Anyway, but lovely turn of phrase, some lovely stuff in there. But we do need to move on, I'm afraid. Let us go to Act 3, Scene 4. Enter the Duke of Kandy and Barbarossa.
This was an act of such strange consequence as never yet was heard. A man found dead within a private chamber of his house. When all of his servants stirred, not one of them that could give evidence of what befell, but that he killed himself. Cosa impossibile.
I was the first that found him in his blood, then warm from slaughter. Such a ruthful sight, as yet I tremble to remember it.
It is impossible, after a search, no stranger found within Vicelli's doors, but that some servant of his family should have sure notice how the murder was.
It was his own hand, sure.
I cannot think it. The gentleman was honest, full of sport, and well affected.
Pardon me, my lord. My lady Lucretia told it in great grief. She twice before had rescued his life.
Go to.
Besides, my noble lord, papers both written and sealed with his hand were found about him testifying this.
Good Barbarossa, pray my sister Lucretia, here to encounter me with her good company. Somewhat I would in private talk with her.
My lord, I will.
Exit Barbarossa.
High God be merciful, thou that dost know the secrets of all hearts. If Lucretia, as my father doth suspect, was privy to this murder of my life,
Enter Lucretia Barbarossa with her.
I can learn all she knows. But yet I will not either suspect or urge her were it true, being indeed a violation of brotherhood and common humanity she maketh towards me. Sister, how fares it with you?
As with a dead corse in a sepulchre, cold, lifeless, comfortless, oppressed with sorrow. Not since my joy did leave me desolate, ever could I brook well this open air, but still, lamenting and disconsolate, kept up in the chamber, mourning for my lord.
What order took you for his funeral?
He that alive was shrined in my breast, now dead, lives yet entombed in my thoughts. There is a model of it in my closet.
Perform it decently, with diligence.
Brother, methinks the air is cold and raw, and as you please, let us confer within.
Gladly, dear sister, with what haste you may, and I desire you, noble Barbarossa, to meet us at my chamber after supper. My brother Caesar hath appointed me with me some business, and I crave your company.
Thanks, my good lord, but matters of much moment I have at that time with my lord Caraffa, and I must speak this night with my lord Caesar.
Tell him I will attend by 9 o'clock.
I will, my good lord.
Farewell, Barbarossa.
Joy to you both.
Exit Barbarossa.
My trembling liver throbs, my cold heart's heavy, my mind disturbed, and I know not why. But all as he will, heaven's above for me.
And they exit. So last time we had the murder of Lucretia's husband by Lucretia, and well, you know, it was just some people are questioning the suicide theory for reasons that seem to have nothing to do with the fact that he was found with 6 massive holes in him. No, he was such a bright young thing. Yeah,
Full of
thoughts on the. I mean, it's nice. I like the fact that people are sort of going around going, I suspect foul play. I mean, you don't need to be Poirot to figure that one out. Gordon Bennett. Any additional thoughts about this scene, Stephen?
I mean, it could be all very sort of, you know, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, that everybody knows it's not true, but nobody can actually say it. Perhaps.
Yes, that's that sort of living in a police state where everybody is informing on everybody else. You don't state out loud that, yeah, clearly she did it. But maybe there's something a bit odd about the official story. Yeah. Okay. Let us move on to Act 3, Scene 5, as we have the return of Frescobaldi, Solus.
This is the Black Knight. This, the fatal hand. These are the bloody weapons which must be witnesses and actors of this tragedy. Now, Frescobaldi, play thy master's prize. Here is a rich purse crammed with red cruzados, which doth inspire me with a martial spirit. Now I could combat with the devil tonight. First did I wash my liver, lungs, and heart in Cretan wines, and headstrong malvoisie, such as would make a coward fight with Mars. Then, lest I should, with any weapons drawn, be driven to danger of mine enemy, I practised my martial feats of fence. As, for example, if with arms unsheathed, if I were to kill this conduct, here I come.
He fenceth.
He makes a thrust. I, with a swift passado, make quick avoidance, and with this staccato, although he fence with all his finest force, bared of his body, thrust him in the throat. Guardate bene, signori onorelori. Suppose this conduct, or my duellist, should falsify the foin upon me. Thus, here I will take him, turning down this hand.
Enter Enrico Baglioni, looking earnestly upon Frescobaldi.
Il punto verso indrizzato thus. Admit he forced me with his ambrocado. Here I deceive then, with this passado, and come upon him in the speeding place.
What mandragon or savage escapade, what pantagonga or pantagruel art thou, that fightest with thy father's soul, or with some subtle apparitions which no man can behold with mortal eyes? Or art thou ravished with bedlamy, fighting with figments and vain fantasies, chimeras or black spirits of the night?
I'm not within 9 furlongs of this place. My name is Robos Ongal, the grim ghost of Bembocamber, king of Calicut. And here, for this night, I keep sentinel for Moscow Pateron, great king of flies, great grandsire of 10,000 hecatombs.
I conjure thee, foul fiend of Acheron, by puissant hobblecock and Bristol toe, by windy capper Monty Bogglebow, Pollid Pomus, and the dreadful names of Mullisack and Hermo Cotterock, by Petro Demi, by the dogged spirits of Bacchus which Canary land inherits, by purple Aligant, the bloody giant, and leaden-headed Hollock pure and pliant, by Biramasha, and by Sidrack Sweet, who did with Matthew Glynn in combat meet, and by this awful cross upon my blade, of which black curs and hedgehogs are afraid, and by this fox, which stinks of pagan blood. Dost thou walk here for mischief, or for good?
Brave man, whose spirit is approved well, as most approved panders truly tell, under green hedges, under cobblers' stalls, in portal, porches, under battered walls, which day by night keeps watchful sentinel to gaze the pleasures of fair Claribel, profane arch-patriarch of Pancridge steeple, the baldy beacon of ungodly people, with other matter, which I might allege to the grand captain of Golman Hedge, marching foul Amazonian trolls in troops, whose lanthorns are still lighted in their poops. Some without kerchiefs, others with torn smocks, certain embotched with piles, and some with boxes, others with rotten shoes, and stockings rent with carrion in each ditch, keep parliament. In petticoats all patched and waistcoat torn, and wandering with some rag bless every thorn, which with their targets never make retire from any breach, till they their foemen fire, rebatting the stiff points of their keen blades, till all their champions masculine prove jades. To thee, saith Frescobaldi, case thy steel, lest thou the rigour of my fury feel.
And yet I love thee for thy martial grace. Thine, in all service. Shake hands and embrace.
Ah, pox upon thy coward fists, foul knave! And yet I love thee, rogue. Ask rogue, and have.
Embrace fantastically.
Come and embrace. Oh, 'Tis blithe when maltmen meet and drink till they have lost both head and feet, and drivelling sleep on every stall and bench, with every man a knee in his hand and in his can a pretty wench. But Frescobaldi, my brave Bodignoro, varlet of velvet, my Mikado villain, old heart of durance, my stripped canvas shoulders, and my petuana panda. Tell me what humours, cataplasmatic, excited have thy Bacchic fantasies to draw that triumphant swirly dildido upon some spirit of the buttery.
This was no barmy spirit of the bottle, it was a bloody spirit of the battle. If I lie, call me thy Wimblecock.
A mouldy jest? Well, I will answer thee. I conjure thee, by Negra Lucia's name, by Dom Patenti, by the subtle shape of Nana Balika, by the cunning flights of Vinnie Clerilix with her fair sprites, by Megacourt, with Marga Maricalos, that in Turnulibal doth keep an alehouse, by Nan Liverhomo, that hot stigmatist, now bedded with the Italian vitriolist, which in the strange vitriol dildi doors for dames. Her spirits have no power to touch this strand till they transported from Lambecchia land. By Caron Ferryman of Black Avern, fall anchor at the Styliad Tavern, and by Tartarian Pluto's Heban ball. Why didst thou combat with thy father's soul?
Learned magician, skilled in hidden arts, as well in prior as posterior parts. I see thou kennest the secrets of all sorts of sharp syringes and salacious sports, venereal buboes, tubers ulcerous, and James Dephystic cankers venomous. Doubtless, Don Vigo then his vigour poured into thy brains when he thy bottle scoured. Noble Herilico, question no further. My meditations are of blood and murther. I face it have too long, prithee be gone. Enrico Baglioni, by this sword! I am tomorrow to perform a duel, and practising in this night's melancholy how to dispatch it with a brave staccato. Here did I make proof. Prithee good night. Trouble me now no more. Early tomorrow I'll march into the sign of the frying pan, and take thee timely with thy points on trust, to drink a flagon of Greek wine with thee.
Good night, my noble Rillibilbibo. Thou shalt be welcome in the darkest midnight.
Exit Baglioni.
Now to my watchword. It is quite forgot. Oh! Col Nunolo la Pioggia. Think upon it.
The clock strikes 11.
This is mine hour appointed. This the place. Here will I stand close till the larum call.
He stands behind the post. Enter a page with a torch, Duke of Candy, and Caesar Borgia disguised.
What is the clock, boy, now?
My gracious lord, by sister's horologe, 'tis stroke 11.
Fit hour for our purpose, noble brother?
But has la bella Formiana notice of our approach tonight?
Oh, doubt it not. Villain, put out that torch.
The boy putteth out the torch.
Being disguised, we will not be descried. Depart you to my lodging presently. Pain of thy life, not one word that thou sawest.
Exit page.
'Tis very dark, good brother, go before. You know the streets best.
Oh, keep your way. You cannot lightly fall. But if you do...
How then?
Oh, you shall be supported.
My heart begins to throb, my soul misdoubts, I fear some treachery. A chemi fedo guarda mi Dio, on in God's name.
Give me your hand, brother. Why, do not faint.
Caesar, I can scarce go. A sudden qualm hath seized upon my spirits.
Oh, tut, brother, forward with alacrity. My life for yours, you'll be at ease anon.
'Tis a foul business. Let us retire and seek some other season for our sports.
Oh, I am ashamed thou shouldst be general, to lead those forces that fight for the church, and here show such faint-hearted cowardice.
Are you disposed to quarrel in the streets? Neither the time nor place serves instantly to call you to some audit for these words.
Abortive coward, born before thy time. I will not brook thy foolish insolence.
Caesar trips up Candy's heels.
Conduolo la piaggia.
Caesar and Frescobaldi stab him.
Dear God, revenge my wrongs, receive my soul.
Let him receive thy soul when he thinks good. I'll take an order for thy burial. Help, Frescobaldi, let us heave him over, that he may fall into the river Tiber. Come, to the bridge with him.
Be what he will, the villain's ponderous. Having some gold upon him, shall I take it?
Oh, take it, where there are 1,000,000 of ducats. Thou hast done bravely, Frescobaldi. Stretch out thine arms, fear that he fall not upon the arches.
I'll wash him, doubt you not, of a new fashion.
I think thou never hadst a Christendom fellow for company. Pernicious villain!
Hold, cock's wounds, my lord, hold!
The devil go with you both for company.
Caesar casteth Frescobaldi after. Caesar remains.
Now, Caesar, muster up thy wits together, summon thy senses, and advance thyself. Where and earth have interposed their bodies betwixt the world's bright eye and this black murder. Sweet silent night, guarded with secret stars, keep silence and conceal this tragedy. Saturn is Lord Ascendant of this hour, propitious patron of assassinates, of murthers, parricides, and massacres. Lord of my birth, auspicious to my life, this my first degree to domination. Who can, or if they could, who dare suspect how Caesar Borgia killed his brother Candy? This is infallible. Many crimes lurk underneath the robes of holiness, and underneath my purple tunicle this fact concealed is. Ascanio spots shall strangely, by some wily policies, be brought into suspect for Candy's death. Sister Lucretia, thou must follow next. My father's shame and mine endeth in thee. Now, show thyself true Caesar. Caesar shall either live Caesar-like or not at all.
Exit. Enter Francis, our chorus historian.
Death and blood only lengthen out our scene. These be the visible and speaking shoes that bring vice into detestation, unnatural murders, cursed poisonings, horrible exorcism and invocation. In them examine the reward of sin. What follows, view with gentle patience.
And exit. I mean, that's almost like we should have on the poster, isn't it? Unnatural murders, cursed poisonings, horrible exorcism, and invocation. Fun for all the family, only a penny at the door. Wow, quite a scene. Shall we begin at the beginning or begin at the end? Where do you want to go with the horrible murder or the random comedy double act? Who wants to leap in with a starting point for discourse on this scene? Stephen.
Because of the tipping over the bridge, it reminded me of the original Lady Killers. It's this kind of sort of flipping between the two things. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, because we know he's out here to murder someone. He's practicing his murder stabs, and how he'd fight. And it's an interesting question: how good is he actually at fighting? Because he could be a perfectly good one. Someone sees him and goes, "Oh my God, are you fighting a spirit?" And then they start this random Dungeons and Dragons invocation battle between going, who can say the stupidest nonsense at each other, and then they go, we're mates now, and it's just like, I don't know why. I beyond that it's fun. Aliki.
I mean, I think I didn't help it by going all overboard because I wasn't sure what was going on either. But I think what's happened is that they are in fact mates. They know each other. And either the original, hey, what are you doing there fighting a ghost, is a friendly joke to begin with, or he can't see him too well. So by the end, but I think the other guy recognizes him, my dude, what was his name? Frescobaldi recognizes the other man at some point. And he's like, hey, it's me, it's Frescobaldi. So, I mean, they didn't know each other before. I'm not sure what the point is, except to let us all enjoy ourselves a little bit before Frescobaldi gets killed. Like, the writer is like, oh, well, this character's fun. He talks a lot of nonsense. Let's give him another chance to do that before we murder him.
Yeah, over the edge of the bridge he goes. I mean, he's not really necessary for the murder either. I mean, Caesar does some of the stabby action himself. So it's almost like, what's he there for, apart to get murdered himself? Alan, then Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason for the lack of recognition was probably both are as drunk as ferrets. I got the impression that considerable quantities of vino had been taken. And it almost felt like it was an established double act going on there.
And some lovely lines of dialogue. If I lie, call me thy Wimblecock. Yes, Sarah, then Elizabeth.
In that massive monologue, that massive prose monologue that Frescobaldi had, I'm fairly certain he mentioned Baglioni. Because I was playing that character, my ears pricked up. I'm like, oh. So I think you're right, Aliki. They do know each other, and I mean that whole scene is just like, what you doing? Oh, practicing me fight lunges for tomorrow. I've got to go and murder someone. All right then, see you later. And I mean.
Yeah, after all of that stuff I've gotten written down, now you tell me. Now you're going to actually just do some plot stuff.
Yeah, and it's like, you could do that. And then he goes and he's not really necessary to the murderer anyway, because Cesare kind of does it all. So I mean, really, he doesn't seem to serve any plot function. I think he is, as Aliki said, he's just, this whole bit is just there for the pure joy of silliness and just kind of... I was going to say maybe it's meant to be like comic relief, but it's not even really relief, because the whole thing really has been kind of hilarious today, whether that's a good thing or not. But
The funnier it gets, the closer you get to a murder. I don't know. Maybe that's the rule. You have to wind up the laugh count before someone gets stabbed. It's like that's the motive energy for murder in this play is audience response. I don't know. Elizabeth, then Stephen.
I was just wondering, in terms of like stagecraft, how you would play it, but like how much Candy knows about what's going to happen to him, about how much he trusts people that he's with, and when exactly he gets to the point of realization that, these people are here to kill me. And then I was thinking about tonally, we have this like black comedy thing going on, where I think that some of the murder is supposed to be, like Sarah was saying, I feel like some of the murder that happens is supposed to be funny. It's a bit tongue-in-cheek, and I think we are supposed to laugh a little bit, especially at the fact that, you know, we have someone stabbed 6 times and the people are still considering whether it was a suicide. I think that it's supposed to be, there's no coincidence that it's so juxtaposed with the scenes of like the double acts being hilarious.
Yeah, I absolutely, absolutely. I mean, just the way that Caesar's going, stretch out thine arms for fear you fall not upon the arches. It's like, just make sure you're hanging as far over the bridge as you can, mate, so that I can just tip you over. You know, it's signposted so far away that it's...
He's falling into water.
Well,
Stephen.
in Frescobaldi's defense, he's very, very drunk.
Yeah. Stephen.
Well, I think it's probably just a restatement of Elizabeth's point in a way, but I was sort of getting kind of strong old new colliding vibes in terms of sort of stock characters, in the sense that, you know, the sort of the huffing, you know, boastful soldier thing is really quite an old one and quite a familiar one. And that, you know, so it's not just a routine between these two guys. It's a sort of very old school routine in a sense. And there's also a bit of meta theatricality in there as well, because everybody would have had some kind of experience of some kind of conjuration scene, and you know, possibly might come in handy for the later in the play too. And so it's kind of, you know, perhaps warm and fuzzy. And then that collides with a sort of a different kind of boastfulness, the sort of ego of the, you know, the murderous malcontent, who's a kind of bang up to date modern figure, if you like. And so I was wondering, you know, the tonal point that Elizabeth and other people have been making could also be down to things which are recognisably theatrical tropes that are old-fashioned and kind of comfortable and funny versus the kind of new thing, you know. And it's kind of sort of Martin McDonagh sort of thing, you know. You've kind of got these, you know, all these kind of cod Irish stuff going on, and then somebody kind of does something terrible to an aged relative or something, you know. That collision is part of the intensifier.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Yeah, it's not a spoiler really to say that we're about to go into a conjuration scene. So having this scene before the conjuration scene, it feels almost the wrong way around. It feels like if you're going to do a spoof of a conjuration scene, maybe you do it after a conjuration scene, not before a conjuration scene.
Well, that's been done already, though.
Yes,
everybody
so
knows
it's
you
a general thing.
The comic bit after.
But you are setting up the next scene to not be taken seriously, because you've just ripped into it. Well, let's go into it now as we go into Act 4, Scene 1. Alexander in his study, beholding a magical glass with other observations.
'Fore God, 'tis candy! 'Tis candy, I know 'tis candy! Where is that traitorous homicide? Where is he? I cannot see him. Oh, he shall not scape me so. I must and will find him, though he were invisible. Appear! Appear! Not yet. Oh, and Candy murdered too. Let me look forth.
Alexander cometh upon the stage out of his study with a book in his hand.
Oh, very good, very good. Well, I perfectly perceive by this ascension of octophylax what time of night it is. Sorrow give place, revenge in blood, and fiery sacrifice commandeth. Nature now prevents her current. Yield. Let us adore the second eye of heaven.
He boweth his body.
Bright Armatas increaseth. She is not combust. O sacred season for nocturnal ceremonies, this joyous quarter is in Casmaran.
He looketh on a watch.
What hour of night is't? Why, 'tis Salem, 12 o'clock. What are our angels this quarter? Gargatel, Tariel, Gowiel. How goodly these augurize fair auspices of truth. Now mounts bright Athaman in his golden ascension, direct in opposition with our hemisphere, and now their hour with them is Iatalon.
He tinketh on a bell.
Bernardo, bring hither thy white robes of sanctity. Hast thou coals ready burnt? Bring in my thurible, and cense about this sanctified place. For here Festatui must have her honour. Candy, my son, is murthered. Candy, my son. Oh, Candy, my son, is murthered. I will raise all the great devils to show the murderer. Even as thou lovest my son, haste and dispatch. Haste and dispatch. It as thou lovest my soul, 'tis not yet yawned by 3/4 of an hour. What are our angels of this night? Michael, Dardiel, Horatipel, in a triumphant car of burning gold, crowned with a circlet of black ebony, and with a mace of jet, King Varka rides, attended with his ministers of state and a Cinnaball. Fit dismal times for our solemnities.
And enter Bernardo.
Put on my robes. Give me my pentacle. Sense well, Bernardo. Bring me some fire in an earthen vessel. Now I must labour like a collier's horse.
After Bernardo has censed, he bringeth in coals, and Alexander fashioneth out of his circle, then taketh his rod.
My precious, best approved and trusty servant, hence, in all haste, betake thee to thy beads, whilst these dark works of horror are in hand. Red sandal is my fumigation.
Standing without the circle, he waveth... I apologise. He waveth...
And that's corpse number 2 for today.
We're doing well. He waveth his rod to the east, and calleth upon... Calleth upon Sarah.
Vionatraba!
To the west.
Suceratos!
To the north.
Aquiel!
To the south.
Macazael. Conistro et confirmo super vos in nomine ai. Has up and ascende per nomo ya, he, va, hi, ha, va, and
Fiery exhalations, lightning, thunder, ascend a king with a red face, crowned imperial, riding upon a lion or dragon. Alexander putteth on more perfume and moisturize me, and saith,
I conjure thee by these aforesaid names that thou receive no phantasmatic illusions.
What would great Alexander have with us? That from a fiery region millions of leagues beneath the sulphurous bottom of abyss, where Mammon tells his ever-tried gold, calleth me from strong business of high state, from sure subversions and mutations of mighty monarchs, emperors, and kings, from plotting bloody fields and massacres, triumphant treasons and assassinates. What's thy demand?
I charge thee by the fourless cited names, and by the dreadful title of Great Far, by which your creatures are sure sealed up, by which the Prince of Darkness and all powers in earth and hell do tremble and fall down, show me the shape of that condemned man which murdered my son, the Duke of Kandy.
Keep a firm station. Stir not for thy life. Expect a messenger at first. Stand fast.
The devil descendeth with thunder and lightning, and after more exhalations ascends another, all in armour.
Send from the foggy lake of fearful Styx. Am I commanded by that puissant monarch which rides triumphing in a chariot on misty black clouds mixed with quenchless fire through unclothed corners and dark paths of death to do what thou demandest?
Then, by the dreadful names of Amioram, Titipant, Sadai, show me that damned child of reprobation which this night murdered the Duke of Kandy.
Keep a firm station, stir not for thy life.
He goeth to one door of the stage, from whence he bringeth the ghost of Kandy, ghastly, haunted by Caesar, pursuing and stabbing it. These vanish in at another door.
Hold! Hold, hold, hold! Oh, per todos santos now, no more! Caesar hath killed a brother and a father!
What wouldst thou more? Shall I descend?
Show me the person by whose impious hand Gismond Vicelli was done to death.
Keep a firm station, stir not for thy life.
Ah, he bringeth after the same door Gismond Vasili, his wounds gaping, and after him Lucrece, undressed, holding a dagger fixed in his bleeding bosom. They vanish.
Out! Out! No more, no more! My soul dissolves.
Say, what wouldst thou more?
Beldaciensis, Berolanensis, Helioren, Descende, iu beo mando impero!
The devil descendeth with thunder, etc. Enter Bernardo. Alexander tinketh his bell.
Out! Out! Alas, Bernardo, I am wounded with grisly wounds and deep incurable.
Comfort yourself in God's name, blessed Father, so long as no wounds the body bleed.
The cureless wounds, I mean, are of my body. Wounds both of my soul and body. But, Bernardo, this is my comfort in calamity. Some shall pack after them for company. What's o'clock? What's o'clock, Bernardo?
Very near 6 by St. Peter's Bell.
Haste thee then. Pass thee to my apothecary. Bid him provide those drugs I spoke for yesterday, and bear them in all haste to Domenico Giglio. Take you those letters with you which are here. Bid him deliver them to Lodowick Sforza's name, her lustful paramour. Make haste, and see that he dispatch it quickly. Deliver him a purse from me for a token crammed with 200 ducats. Bid him be secret as he loves his life. Haste, and be gone!
Exit Bernardo.
Astor shall follow. I must have his lands. This thorn must be cut of being, but tender. Then cut it soon while it is young and slender, lest growing great to prick thee to the bone. My lust importunes it, and he shall die. Sons, nephews, daughters, concubines shall die. My conscience is turned mercy's enemy. He that would rise to riches and renown must not regard, though he pull millions down.
Exit Alexander into his study. So that was a nice, low-key scene. apologies for the corpsing there, but he was waving his rod around rather intemperately, and
Thinking the bells.
Yeah, there was a lot there. Bernardo, bring hither thy white robes of sanctity. They're at the cleaners. So there's so basically this is magical Palantir moment at the beginning. He's seen the death, but he hasn't seen who does it, so he has to call on demons to find out who did the murders. And he finds out that people are slowly murdering people. Who'd have thought it? In this particular landscape. So I mean, it's hard to feel sorry for him because we have already discovered that he is a horrific sex pest. So it's they're all venal and awful. Just a question, Sarah. I mean, I thought you did it very well, but I think the stress is ya, he. Va, hi. It's you could have done better. Any serious thoughts from the room, Stephen?
Well, it's actually prompted by from the sort of theatrical point of view. I was really, really fascinated by the way in which you have, fairly standard kind of incantation invocation thing with lots of demon names and stuff. And then it just descends into these mad monosyllables, some of which are what people use to indicate laughter. He, and ha, are used for laughter. And I kind of had it would be great today because you could just go off on a load of, I don't know, animal noises or something. And then you're back into, actual normal language. So I'm really, really intrigued as to what that was supposed to do for the performer at the time. I mean, was it an improvised here, vamp until we've got the kind of, the winch ready for the devil or whatever. But what an opportunity for a performer now. Does anybody remember the end of Ashes to Ashes?
Yes.
There was a devil in Ashes to Ashes. Do you remember the devil character suddenly did that? So that would be really, really interesting in performance, I think.
Yes, because our devil is a king with a red face riding upon a lion or dragon. I mean, I like that choice. Again, we've had, I'm sure we've had that choice somewhere else. I seem to recall a lion or dragon choice, and I can't remember what it was.
The second edition of Faustus, it actually says he actually flies on a dragon rather than somebody describing it. So it could just be for the prop man.
Well, yeah, I mean, it partly. I suppose it might be a case of he doesn't know which company he's pitching the play to. So it's done. If it's such and such who've got the dragon, you can have this one. It's you who's got the lion, you can have that one. I mean, as long as it's a magical animal, it doesn't really matter, does it?
Well, it's a bit Revelations-y, I think. I think that's riding upon a something or other. So as long as it's something in chapter 23 or whatever it is, as well, I think possibly.
Yeah, I also love the way that it's somewhere between a demonic incantation and a spa weekend, because I just love the way it says, whilst these dark works of horror are in hand, red sandal is my fumigation. I mean, it's just like, I know that's a modern thing. That's not what it was aiming for. I apologise, but I just
Gwyneth summons the devil.
Yeah. Sorry, Aliki then, Sarah.
I mean, it would be really interesting to have somebody who knows the history of ritual magic here. I imagine the red sandalwood is to protect him, and that's why he reapplies it when the devils come.
Yeah. It just doesn't land that way.
This lovely sort of railway timetable moment at the beginning is like, which angels and which, yes. So, really kind of delightful detail of the way I put it in the chat was nerdiness, but it's really scholarship, I suppose, of the time required. It's not just crossroads and bloodletting and come on, Satan, let me sell my soul. This is properly detailed stuff.
Sarah, and then we must move on.
Yeah, this is at least PhD level, I think, isn't it? But following on from that, what I was going to say was playing that role. And I mean, okay, I was reading it cold, so you could obviously do more if you were rehearsing this. But I found it really interesting, these little exclamations where he was, crying for his son who had just died. And then he'd suddenly go off into all the scholarly, alchemist, devil-raising stuff. It was like he kept forgetting. He kept forgetting why he was doing it. It was like, oh, my son, I must conjure a devil to find out who's murdered him. Ooh, yes. What angels do we have now? Yeah. Oh, my son. Ooh, yes. And I'm not entirely sure how you would play that in a way that wasn't comic. I mean, I suppose you could have him more devastated while he's reading his books, but it just seemed to me to be, it just seemed to just be kind of like ridiculous. The fact that it was like he was more into the conjuring than he was, the grief about his, I don't know how genuine that grief was, or I mean, that would be a decision for the director and the actors, I suppose, but it would be hard not to make it funny.
And we've got this spectacle of death coming on, this little dumb show each time of, a mini version of the two murders too. Very briefly, Stephen.
I wonder if people would make, if we've got somebody in sort of papal robes, and that would look rather like magician's robes. And they're kind of riffing off that.
Yes, this. Yeah, the Pope's doing this. So yeah, okay. Act 4. This would be an ecumenical matter. Let us go on to Act 4, Scene 2. Enter Caesar Borgia and Caraffa and Bentivoli.
Where is His Holiness? Where is my father? Alas, your son is slain. Your hapless son. My noble brother, out! Alas, is murdered! In tender passion, let curious search and inquisition be made through Rome to find the murderers. I fear that traitorous Judas, Cardinal Ascanio Sforza, with his complices. I will not hold fraternity with him. And here, behold my meeting, blessed father, receive again these robes. Take here this hat, and in these arms which I have buckled on, I do forswear all offices of church, till I be revenged for his death.
He disrobeth himself and appeareth in armour.
A foul red vengeance overhangs his head, whose heart endure it, or whose devilish brain could execute, conceive, or meditate so foul a murder of an innocent. Caraffa with Bentivoli, give leave. Somewhat I would in private have with Caesar.
Exeunt Caraffa and Bentivoli.
Caesar, dissemble not, for that were vain. Whence comest thou?
Directly from my chamber.
Oh. Where didst thou hear this news?
We found his body, brought the news.
Then he was drowned, Caesar, was he not?
It seems he was.
What, by some fisher?
How should I know that?
Oh, sure, by some subtle fisher that laid nets for Candy's life and honour. But say truly, was it thy brother?
Are you not my father?
Ah, that I never had been any father! But speak again, man, speak the truth, and fear not. Who slew thy brother Candy this last night? Who trained him forth? Who walked along with him?
Am I the keeper of my brother's person?
Oh, execrable Cain, perfidious homicide, apparent villain! What canst thou design which I would know that thou canst hide from me?
Play upon your devils. You deal with them that watch more narrowly to catch your soul than he which sought my brother's Candy's death. You know, Satan is the lord of lies, a false accuser, a dissembler,
Tell your false liars they be lying devil.
Caesar no more. Caesar no more. Thou knowest
What? No, I.
that I know. Dissemble not.
Suppose you know. Suppose in wrath and fury I killed my brother. What can be mended now? He was not fashioned for these busy times. He rests in peace. Our peace rests in our swords.
Caesar, thou dost unkindly vex my soul with rubbing up my secret miseries, incurred by seeking to lift up thy head.
Pull me now down, good father, with your conscience. Your conscience, father, of my conscience is. My conscience is as like your conscience, as we're printed with the selfsame stamp. I know my sins are burthenous, and bear them. Your sins more heinous, yet your robes conceal them.
Out! Wicked and nefarious homicide!
Thou upbraid me not. If that lamp burn dim, which should give light to men in darkest night, how can they choose but must in shadows err, that follow the blind glimmering thereof? Does this one petty fault appear so grievous, you well consider is no fault? He was an honest man, and fit for heaven. Whilst he lived here, he breathed in misery, would have been enlarged. I set him free. Now, if I may compare your state with his, or your condition with my quality, have you not sold yourself unto the devil to be promoted to the papacy? Have you not sold the livings of the church? Are not your coffers crammed with beastly bribes, with foul extortion, base usury? Have ye not, since your inauguration, poisoned and done to death 6 cardinals in devilish avarice to get their goods? Have you not, which is most abominable, committed incest with your only daughter, and made me sin with her for company, that both might reign in hell for company? Did you not take of Giorgio Bocchiardo 100,000 ducats from the Turk to kill his brother, German Ottoman? Have you not kept the pearl of Italy, Astor Manfredi, that young virtuous prince, in beastly lust and filthy sodomy, blasting the blossom of his toward youth? Have you not now given order for the death of my dear sister, whom your passions caused to kill her later husband Di Vicelli, and rob the noble earl of his new spouse, only to cloak your vile impiety?
Caesar! The devil hath been thy schoolmaster.
No, I pass your secret counsel with the devil. Your avarice, ambition, perfidy, your bloody plots, inhumane cruelty. Why then upbraid ye me with Candy's death? A bastard of our house, degenerate, in whom no spark or spircle of honour appeared to raise the race of Borgia. Had I been lieutenant of your forces, disarmed, had conquered all Romania. France before this had trembled, Spain had stooped, the Roman emperor had fawned upon us. King Charles had been restrained, Frederick expulsed, and Naples been made our heritage.
Triple joy succeeds a single grief. I have engaged all to make Caesar great. Caesar, it suiteth with thy grace and glory to cloak my vices. I will pardon thine. Let one of us excuse another's crimes. And for this bloody fact so lately done, as thou didst cunningly begin, proceed. to lay the guilt or imputation on them whose death may do thee benefit. And never was my soul better contented than that our woes are with rich hopes prevented.
Now stands Romania subject to my sword. Imole furli camerini et urbini shall have the first charge. If I there succeed, have forward further with a better speed. Caesar or nullo written in my guerdon, when with my troops victoriously I ride on.
Hola! Bernardo! Call in Caraffa with Bentivoli.
Enter Bernardo.
Aye. Now, my precious boy, my Caesar, prosecute as thou hast begun. With art, look sullen and demure. Hold down thy head like one swollen up with sorrow.
Enter Caraffa with Bentivoli.
They come. Say that those arms were put on in revenge of Candy's death. The sovereign medicine of things past cure is for to bear with patience and forget. Caesar hath vowed revenge for Candy's death, and in regard of Caesar's piety, I make him general in his brother's place.
And never shall I sheathe this sword in peace till I have wrought upon the murderer.
Success accompany my lord, and in your battles give you victory.
Is order taken for his funerals?
Oh, Bentivoli, take you no thought for that. That is the greatest care which troubles me.
Come on, my lords, we will advise within, for I must have your counsels in my grief.
And they exit. So essentially the scene follows directly on from the previous scene. It's effectively a flow of action, isn't it? Because he's just nipped into his study. Caesar comes on and he comes straight out again, doesn't he? Caesar, already kitted out in armour for that dramatic gesture of going, look, I will no longer be a cardinal. I've always wanted to be a lumberjack. No. And then it's an evil off, isn't it? We've had a lot of these squaring offs of going, yeah, I'm going to fake wizard off with you, and now it's I'm going to, you're evil. No, you're evil. No, you're eviler. Look how evil you are. Should we just get on with being evil? Yeah, all right. It's like, you killed all these people. You killed 6 cardinals. Yeah, fair. Yeah, okay. Got me. Aliki.
Yeah, I just feel it's a bit of a waste that we had, an act and a half or 2 acts of essentially irrelevant to the rest of the action plot with kings and sieges and castles and whatnot, when we could have been watching him murder 6 cardinals.
Yes, I have to say they did drop that one by us, didn't they? I have to say, as we've been going today, I've increasingly been going, right, okay, first scene of Act 1 and Act 2's gone, because they're utterly gets in the way of all this stuff. Let's get on with the plot with Lucretia murdering people and Alexander and Caesar working their way through people. Let's have more of that. Dumb show of 6 cardinals getting it. That's been ordered. I don't know how they're being murdered, but there's got to be some of that. So okay, I'm feeling a lot more confident about this play this session than I was last time. So yeah. Other thoughts? No, we good. Which is a good thing really, because we've still got a reasonable chunk to get through. Act 4, Scene 3. Then enter Lucretia, richly attired, with a file in her hand.
Kind Lodowick, hadst thou presented me with Persian clothes of gold or tinselry, with rich Arabian odours, precious stones, or what brave women hold in highest price, could not have been so gracious as this tincture, which I more value than my richest jewels. Oh, Moticilla!
Enter Moticilla.
Bring me some mixtures and my dressing boxes. This night I purpose privately to sup with my Lord Cardinal of Capua.
Enter 2 pages with a table, 2 looking-glasses, a box with combs and instruments, a rich bowl.
Bring me some blanching water in this bowl.
Exit Moticilla, she looketh in her glass.
Here I perceive a little rivelling above my forehead. But I wimple it, either with jewels or a lock of hair. Yet it is as white as the pure snow. Oh God, when that sweet Marcus Mantua did in Ferrara feast my lord and me, what rich comparisons and similes he with ingenious fantasy devised, doting upon the whiteness of my brow, as that betwixt them stood the chair of state, composed of ivory for the Paphian queen, sitting in comfort after amorous conquest, and kissed my forehead 20,000 times. Oft have I wished the colour of this hair more bright, and not of such a Spanish dye, and yet the Duke of Bourbon on his knees, as the divinest favour of this world, did beg 1 lock to make a bracelet, from which few hairs he garnished my head with jewels worth 6,000 crowns at least. My beaming eyes, yet full of majesty, dart love, and give bright lustre to the glass, as when the sunbeams touch a diamond. The Prince of Salerne solemnly did swear these eyes were quivers which such shafts did bear, that were so sharp and had such fiery touch, as Cupid's arrows never had so much. The rosy garden of these amorous cheeks, my nose the gracious fort of conquering love, breathing attractive odours to those lovers that languish and are vanquished with desire. Gonzaga call it fit the silver perch, where Venus turtles mutual pleasure search. Sweet mouth, the ruby port of paradise, of my world's pleasure, from whence issue forth many false brags, bold sallies, sweet supplies, a chin, the matchless fabric of fair nature, a neck, 2 breasts, upon whose cherry nipples so many sweet salations Cupid sucked. Give me some blanching water in this bowl. I'll wash my face, Moticilla, with this cloth. So, 'tis well. Now, I will try these colours. Give me that oil of talc. Take sarcenet, Moticilla. Soothe my forehead.
She looketh in 2 glasses, and beholdeth her body.
I must delay this colour. Is it carnation right?
Or muted Moticilla.
Oh, the true tincture of a damask rose,
What, is it excellent?
most full of life, and, madame, that's a precious liniment, as ever I beheld to smooth the brows.
I will correct these arches with this mullet. Pluck not too hard. Believe me, Moticilla, you pluck too hard. I feel a foul stink in my nostrils. Some stink is vehement and hurts my brain. My cheeks doth burn and sting. Give me my glass! Out for shame! I see the blood itself dispersed and inflamed. Give me some water.
And Moticilla rubbeth her cheeks with a cloth. Lucretia looketh in the glass.
Rains intoxicate, my face is scalded. Hence with the glass. Cool my face. Rank poison is ministered to bring me to my death. I feel the venom boiling in my veins.
Ah, me, dear lady, what strange leprosy! The more I wash, the more spreads on your face.
Oh, send to my father! Call physicians in!
Exit Moticilla.
Oh, Candy, where art thou, my comforter? Dead and entombed.
Lucretia must follow thee. I burn! I burn! Where is my dear lord? My brains are seared up with some fatal fire.
Enter a servant and physician with Moticilla.
Dear lady, cheer yourself. Be not dismayed. His Holiness in haste hath sent relief, his own physician to comfort you.
For our dear lady's passion, bring some water to cool my thirst.
Madam, you may not drink till you receive this one preservative.
Oh, how unsavory, loathsome stink chokes up my vital senses, and a boiling heat sups up the lively spirit in my lungs.
This poison spreads and is incurable. Madam, receive one precious antidote.
What have I caught you, Sforza, who painted my fair face with these foul spots? You see them in my soul, deformed blots. Deliver me from that murdered man! He comes to stab my soul! I wounded him. Ah, Gismund! Hide those bleeding wounds. My soul breeds drops of sorrow for thy sake. Look not so wrathful, I am penitent. Love and remorse did harbour in thine heart. What dost thou beckon me? I will come and follow thee through millions of woes.
Sweet lady, will you take a little rest? It will refresh your spirits instantly.
No rest until I see my lord again.
Dear lady, do you love your life? Take rest.
She taketh hold of Moticilla.
From the burning coals of true contrition, methinks I see the lively counterfeit of caitiff Cressid in her misery, engendered out of her disloyalty. Moticilla, whom I trained up in cunning sleights and snares of filthiness, forgive me for that sin. Live and repent.
Oh, God, forgive me, for my sins are great. And if his goodness lend my life some space, I will with penance call on him for grace, and spend the remnant of my life in prayer.
I can no more. Death summoneth my soul. Open thy bosom, Father Abraham, merciful Father. Let thy mercy pass, extend thy mercy where no mercy was, merciful Father, for thy Son's dear merit. Pardon my sinful soul, receive my spirit.
And Lucretia expires.
Now is her soul at rest. 'Tis very strange, as well the cause as manner of her death. I have been studied in Hippocrates, in books of Galen and old Avicenna, observed the cures of divers learned doctors in France, in Spain, in High Germany. But never yet is such an accident. There in her body I will in all haste bring woeful news unto St. Peter's Palace. His Holiness will grievously lament.
And they exit. So, this is a fascinating scene, isn't it? Once again, around about this time, we're getting one of these face disfigurement effects. We've had this with acid attacks and other strange disfiguring things in a couple of Boys' Company's plays off the top of my head. It certainly appears in Jack Drum's Entertainment. It appears in another one as well. I forget what. Only a few years before this. So I really do think there's some effect with makeup that is doable here, that this is channeling. And I mean, it's a lengthy scene. It's playing with all sorts of beauty products. I mean, let's be honest. Whatever she bought in, when she went to the chemist, I mean, she's got to get a refund because, frankly, that is not doing what it said on the tin, is it? Or on the vial. Because I was going to go, what's in the vial? What's in the vial? And, where did it come from? How did it? It's not been properly fully set up. This. It's just sort of, we can guess who's instigated this, but it's not like someone's gone, aha, I have or did I miss something? Did I miss something? Did I just zone out? Did I zone out in a long speech? I did, didn't I? I just zoned out. Aliki, then Sarah.
Caesar did say he was going to murder his sister.
Yes, but did he specify?
No, he didn't specify.
No.
He just said he was going to murder her.
That's what I thought. I thought, we had a vague thing, but we didn't have anything very specific. Sarah?
Alexander did also say he was going to murder his daughter. So, guess the murderer?
Oh, is it going to turn into a murder mystery? Oh,
That is the only thing that's missing so far.
Stephen.
I found it really interesting that she sort of comes onto an empty stage, and then they basically do a scene shift and bring on all this furniture. And I'm trying to remember a play that happens in. It's it's quite specific, isn't it? A couple of mirrors, a table, and that's I mean, one of the things that's interesting about this play is the specificity of staging. And so this is signaled that this isn't somebody kind of walking through some random corridor trying to get her hands clean sort of thing. This is somebody in a really, really intimate space, surrounded by the sort of intimate products, etc. It's a really kind of domestic and homely setting that's literally being carried on for this to happen in. And I'm kind of wondering how because on the one hand, you don't want to immobilize the performer, but on the other hand, it seems that somebody thought this is a great way to do it, to kind of play up the pathos or whatever. Let's actually get I don't know, perhaps her sat down and just fiddling with these things, and mobilize a kind of pathos, perhaps, that this shift is about. It seems so specific, and my imagination is really kind of buzzing with that.
It's full of props, and these are props. These are all things that they don't all have to come in immediately as well. That it can be that you've got, because it's a long speech that Lucretia has and can be doing different things with hair and stuff. I love the detail, by the way. I love the detail of, I perceive a little rivelling above my forehead, but I wimple it. And this idea of, I'm going to cover it. And to use wimple in that way, I find I'm going to grow out a fringe. I'll cover it. I find that fascinating. I mean, it's full of all these little details. It's giving you lots of things that you can build the scene out of with props and business, then it all goes horribly, horribly wrong in a sort of Brazil-esque fashion. Sarah, then Aliki.
Well, it's an interesting contrast with that invocation scene, because you had a similar thing there with, Alexander kept calling to Bernardo to bring things, bring the thurible, make sure you incense the room properly and bring this. And he goes into his study and brings about his books and bring the robes. And it's almost like... it's almost like a parallel scene. It's like that was the kind of serious ceremony that conjured devils, and yet it was kind of actually hilarious. This is the kind of frivolous scene that conjures beauty, supposedly, but it actually ends in death. So there's kind of like quite a satisfying, reverse there. In the contrast. And I also think if stuff is being brought out and sort of put around her, and there's this thing of the two mirrors, like the double mirrors and the symmetry of it, you can imagine, you could stage this in a way that it's like a sort of like a sort of weird altar being built around her. She's in the center and you've got all this paraphernalia being sort of placed around her, and then she's kind of there. She's there in the middle of it all, and the scene is set for her to then just kind of die horribly. I think it's kind of particularly in contrast with that earlier scene. I think it's really satisfying, and you could put in all sorts of like little visual signifiers to play up the associations when you were staging it.
Yeah, Aliki.
Yeah, and I think it's such a classic scene, right? I mean, it's a trope that still exists to the modern day, the aging beauty itemizing her charms. She tries to conceal a little bit of that. She says, oh, but so-and-so loved this, and so-and-so this, and so-and-so said that, and my lips, and my... And then it sounds as if she's completely disrobed. She starts talking about her breasts and admiring her body. We have this whole kind of seduction scene that then goes to the really quite horrible death and repentance. And I don't really know what to say about it except yum.
Yeah, I mean, and because you've got this detail, looketh in two glasses. How big are these glasses? How is this functioning? You could almost do a version of this scene today, where you've got effectively an open archway with a body double that is growing more hideously disfigured, or something like that, so that you do something strange to this scene, so that it becomes more and more horrific. I'm really fascinated about how to do this. The sort of it feels very filmic, because it is so, as Stephen was saying earlier, it's so domestic, it's so small scale. It's all about the details and all those little pieces of stuff. And then, of course, she's contrite, which I suppose when you're going through a terrible, painful death, I suppose you have the luxury to be so. Whether in any other context they would be, who knows? Any other thoughts before Stephen?
Well, I was just really, that what you were saying there, Robert, just made me think about the sort of earlier plays where you've got the sort of Tamburlaine, figure or whoever, somebody who is intent on world domination, and it's all drums and trumpet stuff, isn't it? And this is kind of secret passageways and poison boudoirs. I think it's just really interesting that sort of, world encompassing ambition and murderousness is being transposed away from some kind of, epic scenario to something much more recognizably modern. And I'm really interested in the way that the interiors are kind of dictating all of this.
Well, it's interesting because
he's not ahead of an army at all. That doesn't matter.
Well, in a sense, that was Act 2. I mean, it's interesting the play does both. Act 2 was all trumpets and drums. It was drums answering trumpets and trumpets answering drums and people standing on walls and firing cannons. And it was enormous. And it's all the stuff that we kind of have. I mean, I've decided in my head, and I think a couple of other are agreeing with me, is that you just get rid of it. Go for the interior stuff, because it's just better than some of that larger stuff. I mean, there's going to be a little bit more of the drums and trumpets, spoilers going forward, but it's literally the next scene, so hey. There is a little bit more of that kind of scope stuff to come. But yeah, once it goes small, this play catches fire. Actually, this when we've actually only got a couple of people in a room. And that does seem to be what Barnabe Barnes does quite well, actually, when he's got his eye in. Okay, we are into extra time. Some of us were here yesterday. Some of us were not. As I've just said, literally. This is a long play. This is about 25,000 words. That is, 4,000 to 5,000 words longer than even reasonably long plays. So the necessity of cutting sort of rears its head unless you want a ridiculously long evening. And at the moment I'm thinking it's mostly Act 2 so far. We've got one really big slicey cut one could make and connect Lucretia much more to the rest of the play, so that arc works better. All of the supernatural stuff links together better, and at the moment I'm feeling that energy of just, you can make some really big cuts and then you can make some minor little cuts here and there without damaging the shape of it. I'm not wholly sold on all of Frescobaldi's material. I think some of it's a bit much, but it is really fun. It's just a matter of working in rehearsal and then deciding as you go actually how much of this is self-indulgent, because I thought it tipped over to self-indulgence of going, you're having more fun than the audience is, and that's never a good thing. Anyway, final thoughts in the room. I'll go to someone who was here last time. Aliki, you were here last time. Any final thoughts about the shape of the play overall?
Well, I'm one of the people who reckons we should do away with some of the first bits and stick to the interiors, as you say.
I've enjoyed it much more this time around. I have more of a sense of what it's doing. And yeah, I don't really have much more to say, except I'm looking forward to tomorrow.
Excellent. Elizabeth, you were not here yesterday. How are you finding this particular text?
I think it's one of those texts that being plonked right in the middle of it is actually quite a good thing. Because we've got the Halloween sort of atmosphere going on while we're recording this. I really like the devils coming out of the middle of the stage. I liked Alexander. I like the Borgias anyway. I think they're very compelling. And I do like the murders that happen. And sort of Lucretia's death is really, really vicious. You know, I love what Stephen was saying about the internal world that we kind of go into, and that's where she meets her comeuppance. So I think that for some plays that we've done, in the first session it does one thing, in the second session it takes a left turn, does something completely different, and in the third session it's like a downer. But I think for this one, it really works just coming into the middle.
Yes, and yes, we don't know whether it's going to take a downer in the final session. It has been an up and downy kind of journey. It's not a perfect play by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's just going on the point about how horrible what happens to Lucretia is. It's also how voyeuristic that scene potentially could be. I mean, it was alluded to a bit before earlier, but actually, you know, it is very male gazy at times, and it's interesting how much you. I think you can make that part of it, but the question is making sure the production isn't male gazy, if that makes sense. There's something there that is both. There's something about the mode of this play that repels and attracts at the same time, like that scene that we did at the beginning of Act 3, where you're going, well, this is a fascinating study of the abuse of power, but also it's kind of enjoying itself too much while doing that at the same time, and it's sort of. It's doing really interesting things that I'm really interested to see what an audience would to take from it. Actually, Alan, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I must admit, I'm wondering whether this is just echoes from the Hoffman play we did a couple of weeks back.
Many months ago in the release schedule.
Possibly, but in terms of recording, it's only a couple of weeks back. And I'm almost feeling that OTT. I'd started off thinking the OTT control went up to 11. I'm now pushing that to somewhere around 20. Because the whole thing, I think, has got to be played almost as comedic rather than tragic.
Yeah, there's a really good question about tone. Where does this land? I think Hoffman was more out there. I think Hoffman was feeling. Just whereas this flits. This is going from moments of actually quite. I mean, it may be that there is a spin on it, but I don't think it's going for out and out comedy very often, because we have a scene which is out and out comedy, and it feels different to the rest of the play. Whereas Hoffman didn't really. Was there a comedy subplot at all really in Hoffman? There wasn't really. It was just outrageous from stop to finish. So I wonder about that. I'll go to Sarah next for final thoughts and also responsive thoughts.
Yes, I mean, Hoffman was a parody. Well, I don't know if it was intended to be a parody, but that was certainly the way it played. And that's certainly the way, if I was directing it, that's how I'd direct it today. Whereas this isn't. This swings from, comedy to kind of tragedy, like grotesquerie. And like some of the best in the horror genre that kind of mix up the two. And The Lost Boys just flitted into my head for some reason, which is entirely beside the point, but it has that thing of being incredibly gruesome and also hilarious, and I think that's a really good combination for a contemporary audience. I mean, yesterday I was bless the author. I was trying yesterday to sort of say, oh well, all the trumpety stuff that you've got the external world and the very martial masculine world, and then you've got the interior world, the very personal domestic world where you've got Lucretia plotting and murdering her husband. And maybe this is a deliberate thing on the part of the author to, compare and contrast the two different realms and spheres. And today I'm just like, nah, just you could keep the dumb show, add in the six cardinals, and then cut straight to Act 1, Scene 4. Cut all the beginning of the play and then cut all of Act 2. And then if you did that, you'd maybe be and you wouldn't even notice. That's the thing. You'd barely notice it. You wouldn't even have to tweak the dialogue, I don't think.
You might tweak Francis to help with some of the exposition, but if there is any little gaps,
yes, maybe.
But you're right. No, I think you're right. Yeah. And also it reduced the cast size enormously.
Yes.
I mean, this goes from being a massive cast, unbelievably large in Act 2, to something that's a chamber piece and actually very doable for a small company.
Very doable, because most of it is, as you've said, it's two-handers, and it's incredibly effective two-handers. And when you have extra characters coming in, it's like, I mean, maybe we'll get to that thing where everybody comes in the final scene. I don't know, but at the moment, it would be really easy to stage from that perspective, and you could do it in a very, very striking way on a fairly minimal budget, which is always exciting.
Stephen, only here for this session so far. How are you finding it?
Yeah, so hence all the points about there aren't any drums and trumpets in a play that up until that very point have been drums and trumpets. I really like all the stage directions. I'm sorry, they really help me imagine things. I'm really enjoying those, and they're about timing as well. All that stuff with Tinking the Bell. Which is also, I guess, a kind of mass parody. Certainly, when I used to go to the mass, they used to mark certain, it was a sound punctuation. The only thing I have to say is kind of basically Sarah's point, but done much more verbosely, which is Sarah mentioned The Lost Boys, which is 70 plus years after the first vampire film. And what I'm getting out of this, I mean, and it would be quite difficult for an audience to get it, but because we've just read so many plays, I'm really it's sophisticated. We started off reading, and it's Chuck Berry and Big Mama Thornton, and now we're somewhere in the middle of the 1970s with concept albums or something, because we can't keep doing Chuck Berry and Big Mama Thornton, the question of whether it would the earlier is better is another matter. The tonal stuff that is kind of so puzzling and doesn't come off. I'm really enjoying this little kind of thing in my head, which is the reason they're doing this crazy stuff is, we've done the 12 bars, and we've got to keep making theatre. But we've had the kind of parody, Robert's point from earlier, we've had the parody invocation preceding the real, following the invocations. Okay, well, let's do it the other way and see if it works. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. But I think generically and tonally, I think it's really, really interesting what it's. I'm sort of paying the author the compliment of, that he's actually intending to do all of this kind of stuff. But I agree also with what people are saying in that it doesn't always come off.
Yes, just a little thing on the Tinkith, because I love this, the way he's constantly ringing his bell for Bernardo, and it just sort of landed to me because in the book version of Dr. Faustus, in the source book, Mephistopheles is part of the contract is he's got to carry a bell with him so that Faustus can always hear him coming. So it's like he's put a little cat bell around Mephistopheles. That just left. It's not actually a particularly absolute parallel apart from there is a bell, but it just sort of leapt to me at that point of just this constant tinkith, which is delightful stage direction. And yes, this play is full of wonderful stage, really embraced fantastically. How do you do that? That is just a gift to an actor, two actors who are already going massively over the top. It gives all sorts of things that are great. All this sensing that's going on, that's your early modern smoke machine. wandering around with a sensor. You can be wafting this stuff all over the shop and adding smells and all the rest of it, and all these Catholic associations as well, which are a little bit out there. It's doing all sorts of things that I'm much more engaged with it today. I have to say, yesterday there were moments when I was quite bored, and I'm not bored today at all, and that makes me very, very happy. Well, tomorrow it all may come crashing down about our ears, and we may be terribly disappointed as the curse of the final session may strike, but who knows? Find out next time on The Devil's Charter. Thanks to all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, and goodbye. My trembling liver throbs.